we are wounded ourselves. We can't act like we have all our stuff together and have this mask of perfectionism, or this mask of perfection that we hide behind, but we need to take the mask off and be real, be vulnerable, and allow the true broken and wounded side of ourselves to shine through as we minister to these people who are brokenhearted, and we can share through our brokenheartedness that same. And like you said, with recovery, meetings, that's one of the beautiful things of it, is that ability to go into a room around a table or of guys and look at each person in the eye and be able to connect on that broken level. We all share that same cross. We all have that same burden. We're able to be real with our struggles and with the things that we've done and with our brokenness from our past, things that have been done to us. We're able to put the mask down, be real, be vulnerable, expose the real us, practice intimacy in that safe place. And again, that's why we need safety. Is so important. And in fact, that in some of the research they've done on sexual addiction therapy and recovery, one of the highest things on the list that was so critical was safety. Like, people had to feel safe with their therapist and with their group and with their ministry. Whatever. If they didn't feel safe, they were going to close up, walls go up, mask goes up. There's no healing that gets done. So we've got to be compassionate so that people feel safe enough to let the guard down so we can bring healing to them. And we can't do that as long as we keep pushing with our shame approach.
Yeah. I like to think we're incredibly engaging. But we may want to start to wrap it up and save some for next time.
Glass over, that's why.
Yeah, well, we can turn it over, but we better be done before it empties.
That's right.
So just this whole conversation, shame is a huge part of it, and if I can full circle here, original, historical, eschatological. As I'm listening, I'm hearing, a lack of balance, right? So if you are only focused on original man, I'm the image of God, I am God, right? You can look at me.
The crowning of creation.
Exactly, the crowning of creation. You become a toxic narcissist.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And everyone and everything exists for you and your benefit. If you only emphasize this historical man idea, the brokenness, the sinfulness, the hopelessness in a lot of ways of getting out of that on your own, that's despair. That's
right.
It's
Exactly.
shame. It's all of these things. You just, I don't want to admit who I am. I don't want to be who I am. It's not that I did something wrong. I am wrong, right?
Right.
And then if you're only talking eschatological man, there's pride, and there's this wall that you have to keep up to prove to everybody that
You've made it.
I've made it, and come to see me because I know better.
Right.
Which in the end is really just delusional, right?
Yeah.
So you're actually
Right.
having some kind of psychotic episode to believe that you are living in this eschatological, living this
Perfection.
eschatological life. And was something you said earlier, Gary, about the intimacy idea. You're talking about God and then shame, and that's kind of the conduit. Chris, I think you mentioned, right? Getting this intimacy with God again. Actually, that's the key. That's why we need it all, because when you put it all together, we need Him.
Yeah.
Without that historical one, well, without God, we don't exist. Without God, we stay stuck in this historical one. Without God, we don't ever get this eschatological. We don't even know about the hope.
Our hope is in God.
Yeah. And the thing that I've begun to find most interesting about the fall itself was that Adam and Eve essentially said, "We don't need you, God."
Right. Exactly.
And so, get out of here. And then He did.
Yeah.
Right? And then what happened when He did? And so, if we're stuck in this historical man, if we're stuck longing for something or the echo of the past, the key is really ultimately God is the starting point.
Yeah.
And if you can't even say that there's a God, you really don't have any hope, no matter how hard you try, no matter what you're doing, no matter how hard you're fighting for justice in the community or for anything, right?
Right.
Ultimately, you're going to be terribly disappointed.
Yeah.
Because those are all false gods.
It's a kind of
in the end.
despair again.
Yeah.
I mean, my last one little point I want to make is that, being in that place of despair when you don't see God at the beginning, as my origin, and I don't see God as my goal, and I don't see God as what sustains me, and all I experience is the historical reality of my experience, which we talk about in terms of weakness and brokenness, our only hope then is to just say that my weaknesses aren't weaknesses, my brokenness isn't brokenness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the root of stop talking about sin. And that's a kind of despair, to be able to say my weaknesses aren't weaknesses, or my failures are not failures, and it's just I am who I am kind of thing. I think that is kind of a cultural expression of despair, and I think in our bones we kind of know that that's not the case. If I have a temptation, I know that that's a temptation, and that's a recollection of the power of God in my life. And so, being able to balance both that there's a weakness here, but there's also a hope, and a truth and a beauty and a good that puts that weakness in context and doesn't overwhelm us. That's the point, right? And how you put it was beautiful. You have to put all three of those layers together into the single experience of what it means to be human, for us to put our sinfulness in the right context, our goodness in the right context, and not let one side or the other overwhelm us into this false vision of what it means to be human that doesn't do any of us any good. So anyway, I just wanted to put that, right? How do you affirm the beauty of that person who's coming out in their intimacy, and at the same time call a spade, a weakness a weakness?
Definitely.
Doing those things together, that's what that's about.
One thing that you just made me think of something that Dr. Douglas Weiss said that I had learned from one time. He said when you try to minister to somebody, and help them as a ministry leader, pastor, or recovery coach, whatever, you don't want to come at it from you're talking down to them, because you feel, in your mind, your pride, you're better than them, you know more than them, or
Right.
you're at this perfected state now, or something like that, which is ridiculous. But they feel that. They feel like you're over them, and they're nothing, and they're scum, and they slouch now, and it's not going to allow them to open up, But if you come at them from beneath them, also they need to have the hope, and they need to know that there's hope, because this person got out of this, and there's hope for me too, and that you know what you're talking about. They feel confident in you, so you come at it nose to nose, right at the same level, because we're identifying on that same level. We're both human.
Yep.
We both have good qualities. We both have bad character defects, hang-ups, and we have to be real, and not just highlight all of these good things about us and bad things about other people, but then also not, which would lead to pride. But on the flip side, we can't only focus on our negative traits, character defects, because then it's
And
it could
identify
result
ourselves
in,
with them.
it could result in despair. So we have to have that balance of taking inventory of both the good and the bad within all of us, which we all have, and we need to pass that to the person too. Not just have that perspective for ourselves as we minister in that approach, but also let them see that you're not only these character defects and this problem and this addiction, but you also have these good things, and kind of balance it out. So seeing nose to nose instead of from up or down. I think that was pretty cool how you had said that. But
My last 2 cents.
I was like, well,
if anyone was asking or wondering, I was curious.
Absolutely.
I was going to give it to you anyways. I am grateful for this, I guess, 3-dimensional look of the human being. I think it's very helpful to kind of get the full picture.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a panoramic view of it. We kind of have to see where we came from, see where we are now, and see where we're going,
Right.
to just get the full Christian anthropology, just to understand the human being. A lot of the problems we have, and the discourse that in the butting of heads, it's because we don't have a proper understanding of who the human being is.
Yeah.
So shout out to my professor, Father Bryce Sibley, that, it's when we don't get Christian anthropology right, then really we're seeing from a vision that's not quite clear.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for this kind of 3-dimensional, we can kind of see it from different angles, so we can kind really get to the depth there. So I hope that's helpful for everyone else to just kind of know that you're not two-dimensional, you're not one-dimensional, you're three-dimensional. Right?
Mm.
We're complicated, we're complex, but in a very beautiful way. And just to whet the appetite, I know today we strictly, the vocabulary we were introducing today was original man, historical man, and I don't know why I can't say it today. It's just that pressure of saying it right. But just know that in theology of the body, what will come in the future will be the spousal meaning of the body. What marriage is it a sign? What's it a sign of? So, because I know a lot of the things we call it theology of the body, and today we're talking about these three aspects of man. It's like, all right,
Where's the body?
The first episode, y'all introduced that we're going to talk about the body, but I just don't see how that fits. So just know that that's going to be interwoven as we unpack each, I guess, piece of man a little bit more. And John Paul II also spends time in explaining the spousal meaning of the body as well to unveil the deeper truths of basically we were made for God.
Yeah, there's three Bible passages he looks at. You referenced one of them, and then Ephesians 5 is another one, and we use that to talk about all of these things.
Right, these things, and then the very, very last thing I'll say is theology of the body was to me the most loving and pastoral and like respectful and like reverent way of explaining those questions I had when it came to the hot topics, homosexuality, gender identity, sex addiction, marriage, all kinds of where we're kind of seeing that we have a lot of kind of hurts and where it's kind of a little tough these days. So to me, it was the most loving approach, and I was like shocked by that because
it's not what you expected.
I did not expect that, and because at this point we have loved ones, we have friends who we genuinely care and love, who may be gay, lesbian, part of the LGBTQ community, transgender. I mean, right? And I don't want to just pinpoint on that community alone, right? There's people who your maybe son and one of your son or daughter, they're living with their significant other. Maybe they're not getting married. I mean, there's a lot of things.
There's lots happening.
But I just want you to know that the church's response, and we're getting this directly from the Lord, is actually a very loving and like not a shame-based, harsh, like condemning type of or message.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned.
And it is the same gospel too. I just want to throw that in before I know we're about to close out, but a lot of people feel like, what is this new teaching of John Paul? Is this a different gospel or something?
No.
And John Paul II's theology of the body is the same gospel that has always been proclaimed by all Christians, but in a new package, and it's presented to our times. So this is the gospel, just in a different package.
It's like getting a Bible study packet or something on on a particular topic.
Right. Same gospel, new packaging.
So you probably are familiar with Psalm 51. Psalm 51 is David dealing with the sin with Bathsheba, his adultery. Nathan, at least that's how we're told that this is the response, right? This is what he writes this in response to being confronted about something bad he did.
Right.
And it's
And sin is
involved
always
with
before
this
me.
idea, the theology of the body, with sexuality, relationships, all that kind of stuff. And starts out, have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions. So he's connected with God. He knows there's good. There's this original design, and he's very keenly aware of the historical man. And wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin, for I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. Against you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight. So you are right in your verdict and justified when you judge. Surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me. Yet you desired faithfulness even in the womb. You taught me wisdom in that secret place. And cleanse me with hyssop, right? He's looking towards this hope that, that he's not destined to despair because of historical, right? And I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you have crushed rejoice. Hide your face from my sins. Blot out all my iniquity. And he goes through this whole big experience. He's dealing with his shame. He's putting it out there. And then he goes through, create me a pure heart, O God. Renew a steadfast spirit in me. Don't cast me from your presence, the intimacy with God. Or take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation. Grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. Then I will teach transgressors your ways, so that sinners will turn back to you. I think that
Wow.
if we want to reach people,
Yep.
we got to do what you were talking about. We got to meet them here, and ground ourselves in where we really are. With all three of these things coming together. So
Yes.
I just
Thank
felt inspired
Thank
to
you.
share that.
That's
Yeah,
perfect.
thank you.
And I appreciate you guys and all our listeners. Make sure you like and share and subscribe and do all those things. And we'll get some videos up at some point. And hopefully this is a blessing. But until then, later,
Thank
y'all.
you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
So good.
All right, now the video. If it's still recording.